What's up everyone, welcome back here at the Neon Pavilion. My name is Niklas and Eurovision week, it's officially kicked off. We are officially into it with the turquoise carpet being held in Liverpool today. So I thought, what better time to actually talk about the rehearsals that we've had all of this week, because rehearsals have been going on over in Liverpool. Is there still no sound on me? Think there is sound now. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Yeah, so people who are watching this for the very first time, who are watching it after it's been broadcasted live, because that's something new that I'm trying out for this thing, they won't know this, but I actually tried going live just before, but I had some audio issues. It's been a while since I've done a live stream, so I had a little bit of audio issues. Those should be fixed now, but it does mean that I'm trying out a new thing here where I want to do some of these videos, some of these reactions that I'm doing live. So if you are tuning in, actually watching this live at the moment, you can leave a comment if there's something you want me to comment on, and I will be able to do so. If you're watching it later, no worries, there will still be lots to talk about, because like I said, I want to talk about the rehearsals today, and I've actually wanted to talk about the rehearsals all week. I had this whole thing planned where I wanted to try to do these little daily videos talking about all the rehearsals, what was good, what was bad, all these sorts of things. Unfortunately, I didn't have time for it. It's been a very busy week for me, both with school. I am at university right now. I am doing like my final exam very soon. So I'm doing my final report, which has to be handed in by the end of this month. So a lot of things to do there, as well as my work. So I just didn't have the time to it, and I haven't had the time to really get into Eurovision, watch a lot of the content, you know, watch the rehearsals, watch the live streams on TikTok, watch the content on YouTube. I really wanted to get fully into Eurovision mode this week, but I just haven't been able to. It's been such a shame, but let's try to start now, and let's actually try to cram as much Eurovision as I possibly can into next week, when there, you know, we have the semifinals. And before that, let's actually kick it off talking about some of the rehearsals, because I have picked some of my favorites from semifinal 1, from semifinal 2, and of course the big 5 and Ukraine. I'm mainly going to be focusing on the second rehearsals, because that's just where we've seen the most of it. So let's actually get into it. But before we get into any of the acts themselves, I do want to talk about that I think the production is just really, really great this year. You know, after we had a year in Turin where it just felt like things weren't right. It felt like they didn't work as well as they were supposed to. It's just really nice to see BBC and the production really stepping up this year, really doing their best to do a great show for us. I think the camera angles, of course, there are things that can be worked on. We are still in the rehearsing stage of it, so there needs to be things, you know. It's very, very hard to do a production like this. Eurovision is such a big thing, and, you know, you aren't going to get it right on the first time. You aren't going to get it right on the second either. So I think, you know, there's still a lot of work to do, but I think most of it, I think we've seen great camera angles and we've seen a really great stage. You know, I was a little bit skeptical of it. You know that if you have seen my video where I talked about the stage, you will know that I was a little skeptical of how everything was in the beginning, but I do think that it's actually a lot better now. What I really like about it is that we have a very dynamic stage, way more dynamic than I thought it was going to be, because I really thought it was going to be, you know, sometimes just too big, you know, only having one artist on there, they would be swallowed up by the stage. But that doesn't seem to be the case. First of all, there's a lot of artists using that satellite stage, like I talked about in my video that I was hoping. But we've also been able to see how movable these LEDs actually are. And it's something that's gotten me very excited. And I think, honestly, you know, Georgia is a really good example of it. Georgia is really someone who uses that to their advantage and does exactly, you know, what needs to be done. They do exactly that thing where they don't feel like, you know, they're being swallowed up by the stage. We don't have that feeling because of the fact that it is, you know, it's more intimate. It's more intimate because you have the two LEDs that's just like closing in on her, and that's what you focus on. Get some tight camera angles in there, and you can really do something cool and something that they had teased it a little bit, of course, but they hadn't really mentioned how much it was going to be used in practice. So I think that's very, very cool. I think another great example of it, while I try to work out these things that I'm doing, another great example of it is definitely, you can really see it at least, if you look at something like Estonia, for example. If you look at that performance, you really do notice how dynamic it can be, because you can have these LED panels, you know, some of them out, some of them behind, and it creates this like 3D look. I think that's the best way I can describe it. It's like a 3D look. It's something that's very interesting and something that I feel like we haven't seen before, and that very much feels like this was it. This was what the Kinetic Sun was actually supposed to be. And it does make you wonder, right? What went wrong last year? What was it that went wrong with the staging, with the stage in Turin, that just made it not possible? Because it really feels like this was supposed to be the point of that. And it was ruined. And it was such a shame that it was ruined, because looking at it this year, you can really tell that this has some potential. Anyway, I'm just gonna take a look at my notes here, and let's move on to semi-final 1. We're gonna take a little water break, and then we're gonna talk about it. Semi-final 1 is, as many of the fans have said, the big one. This is the one to watch. This is where a lot of the fan favorites are, and we are going to be talking about those, but I do have a few that I want to mention before that. One of the ones that I maybe a little bit surprisingly want to mention, that's actually Malta, because I think this is a lot more interesting than people actually make it out to be. I know that this isn't being tipped as a qualifier, but I do think that it has some elements that could make this a qualifier. It's very bright, it's very colorful, and it's very unique in this way. This is a year, I feel like, where we have a lot of dark stagings, we have a lot of dark stuff, and this really stands out from the crowd there. This feels different, this feels fun, and it is a bit of a bob. We have these very dark songs this year, we have these very dark stagings, so having something that feels very fun, that feels very different, I think is actually a bit of an advantage for this song, especially also because this is coming in between Serbia and Alexandra from Norway. Two songs that have a very dark theming, and I feel like in general, like the first 5 performances we're gonna see on that first night, we're gonna see on Tuesday, it's very dark, it's very moody, and that's not a bad thing, of course. A lot of people will gravitate that, I'm sure of that, but it also means that, you know, if you have something that feels very different to that, you can stand out. I think Malta is a song that's really grown on me a lot. It is a bop. It's fun, and I think the revamp did it a lot of justice. It feels a lot more polished now. I love that they are going a lot with what they also had with the staging that they had for the Malta Eurovision. It's very much the same as that, just, you know, brought into something bigger, but I do like that it also feels a little bit like a budget thing, you know? I don't know how to describe it. I think the best way I can describe it is that it's, you know, this indie band vibe, this indie band feel, and I feel like they're pulling that off very well. I love that they've actually kept these cutouts, the cardboard cutouts, because I think they add so much to... Yes, it may feel a little cheap, but I think it does add to something as well, because it's fun. You know, this is a song and some singers that don't take themselves too seriously, and I applaud that. I think that's definitely the way to go for this song. And I think because it is so different and because it does stand out, I do think that it might have a chance of just scraping through there, actually qualifying. It is televoting only, we have to remember, this year. And, you know, if we just go a few years back where televoting was dominating, where we didn't have the jury vote in there, it was a lot of fun songs going through. You know, if you had something that was dark and moody, you really had to sell it well before you could get through. You know, vocals weren't enough, as I think we've seen in recent years, where, you know, some dark, moody songs with a really great vocal may not be something that the public will love, but it's something the juries will love, and they'll get it through. I don't know how well Malta will do in the final if they do get to the final, but I do think it's something that could work well with the televoters, and we might actually see this in the final, even though I know that a lot of people don't really think that. Another song that I think a lot of people also just like have already written off and don't think will do anything, that's the Netherlands. But I really love this. You know, talk about something that's a little bit more moody. This is definitely one of my favorites of the Moody bunch. I really love the song. I know they haven't, you know, had the best pre-party season. I know they've had some troubles there and they've had to lower the pitch of the song, these kinds of things. But I still think, you know, what they've done with the performance, they have that like what seems to be a moving platform that they're standing on. I do think that they will be able to create an atmosphere. I can already imagine how this is going to look, you know, with people all around them, because they're out there on the satellite stage. You'll have people all around them, you know, with their lights out, with, you know, their phone. They're gonna turn on the light and they're gonna stand there. And it is going to create some sort of mood, whether you like it or not. I almost wanted to say there. I don't know. I think it's such a shame that this song is put down so hard by the fandom, because yes, they have had some bad pre-party performances, but I think what we heard from the second rehearsal, what we heard in the clip, I'm not playing any of the sound in this video because copyright and all that, right? But you know, from what we've heard there, yes, we are losing some high notes, but I think at the end of the day, that's what we need for this performance to succeed. And I hope that they're gonna do well. I don't know if it can get to the final. It's a very competitive semifinal one, but I think it creates an interesting atmosphere. And I do think that this, you know, had there been juries in it, this would have gone through, because this would have had a lot of that calm after the storm effect, I feel like. Maybe not to the same extent, but I do think it has a little bit of that same kind of energy in there. It has a little bit of the same, you know, two people in an intimate setting, and if they can sell that well enough to the cameras, maybe it would be more a jury thing than a televoting thing. Only time will tell. But I think something that people are way more interested in talking about, that's of course, you know, the Loreen versus Kaja, the Finland versus Sweden. I don't know what side I'm really on here. I do think I know. I do think I'm actually more on Sweden's side. I think that Finland is fun, but it's a song that I've never really been able to get into. Of course this is gonna qualify. Of course this is gonna do well. Win or not, I'm not one to talk. I have some very bold predictions sometimes, and sometimes they go through, sometimes they really don't. So I don't know what to make of this. I think what they've done, Finland, is that they've definitely taken the UMK staging and turned it up a notch. Tried to, you know, look at and think, okay, what was good, what was bad, how can we improve on it? And I think they have done that. Of course, it's hard to tell because we've only seen these few seconds of it. We've seen a little bit more of how it's all going to be in the first rehearsal, the one that was on TikTok. We have a better idea of, you know, having that feeling of this is very much in the same kind of vein as the performance at UMK, just taken up a notch. But they've kept a lot of the elements that people enjoyed. This needs tight camera angles. That's the same for Sweden. We'll get back to that in a moment. This needs those tight camera angles to work. But if they can do that, you know, maybe this is the year of Finland. It really depends on what the viewers want. Do they want polished Swedish pop, or do they want something that is crazy? It's party. I know we're all tired of that quote already, but it's just, you know, we keep saying it. All of us doing Eurovision videos, we keep saying it about the Finnish performance. And we do that because that's what it is. It's something that I feel like a lot of people have kind of longed for in the past couple of years. We haven't had, you know, such a big, crazy number in Eurovision for a couple of years. And it very much feels like, you know, when we got out of that televoting only era, that's where we got out of the really crazy stuff. And I think some people are really longing to have that back. Finland is bringing that back this year, and I have no doubts that they're going to get a huge televoting score because of that. Will it be enough to win juries over? That's something I don't know. My gut tells me no, but I also don't want to be the one who's sitting here and saying Finland has no chance of winning, and then I'll end up in one of those, like, you know, aged like milk Eurovision compilations. I don't want to do that. So let's instead move on, and let's actually talk about Loreen. Because I know that a lot of people, you know, looking at this for the first time, people are saying that this isn't as powerful as her performance in Melody Festival. And I think people are saying that because of the box being smaller and the camera angles not being as tight, you know, it's not as dark. We're still, you know, we're still working on those camera angles a little bit. I do think in general, the exposure on the cameras is going to get very nerdy for a second. I do apologize. I feel like the exposure on the cameras, it's just a little bit too bright. All the performances feel a little bit too bright. It's something that the Dutch production in 2021 in Rotterdam, I think they did very well, was that it was a little bit more contrasty, and that just, it made it feel a little bit more cinematic. As you can tell, it's getting very nerdy here, but it felt a little bit more cinematic. And I think something like, you know, for example, Måneskin, who ended up winning, you know, I think one of the things that really helped them was that it was this more like dark cinematic contrasty look that we had in like the colors and the lighting that year. We're seeing this year not as bright and ugly as the colors and the light that we saw in Turin, definitely not. But I still think it is a little bit too bright, and something like a Tattoo that needs those dark angles, like that struggles in that. It struggles in that world, and I think it's a shame because this is such a polished thing. That being said, I still think that it has that power that it had in Melody Festival. And again, this is not one of my favorite songs. It's grown on me for sure, but it's not one of my personal favorite songs. But I do like the staging. I do like that they're actually bringing something different. I don't want us to see a million floating LED walls or whatever next year if Loreen ends up winning. But I think it's nice that we have broadcasters like SVT who can push the limit and do something different, because we do need that sometimes. So I think, you know, people want to know, out of the big favorites, Finland, Sweden, who would I pick? And I think I'm gonna have to go with Loreen here. I think it's just a little bit more my style, and you can call me a Polish pup boy if you want. Don't call me that. Before we get on to semifinal 2, I do want to give some quick honorable mentions. I want to mention Serbia. The things that we've seen so far with that, with how they're using those video game graphics, I think it's very fun. How that like plays out, how that really works throughout the whole performance, we'll have to wait and see, of course. Croatia, I feel like a lot of people are just underrating. There's this band in Denmark. I never knew how to bring this up in a Eurovision conversation, so we're gonna get it in here. There's this band in Denmark called Warsaw. Yes, Warsaw, like the town in Poland. It's this, like, I also want to say a comedic type band that I don't know how to describe it, but it is that more. Yeah, it is difficult to really put a word on that, but it is that more comedic feel of it. And I think that's exactly what LED 3 is as well. They are someone who is bringing a different kind of energy into it. And I think a lot of Eurovision fans just aren't ready for that. They aren't ready for what they are bringing. You can say what you want about these performers, and I get that this may be a little bit too much and a little bit too out there for some. And yes, you can argue that this maybe isn't the thing for a family show. But with that being said, I do still think it is a little fun, you know? And it is that kind of song that gets a little stuck in your head. And it'll be interesting to see if they can pull through the semi or not. Another one that I also want to mention here just at the end, that's Azerbaijan. I think Azerbaijan is a lot of fun, and I don't know if fun is the real word, but I think they, you know, this is a song that's really grown on me a lot. This is really a song that's moved up there in my ranking. I think it's super underrated, and I think, you know, seeing Azerbaijan just bringing something completely different this year, that's fun. That's very fun, and I applaud them for doing that. You know, especially after last year where all that vote rigging, and, you know, they didn't want to talk about that this year. They didn't want any more allegations. You know, they didn't want to buy songs from Sweden. They wanted, you know, to send something to brothers that sing something that's very authentic to them. I applauded for that. I think their staging looks really interesting. I love that it's some different colors. I don't know if we really needed a broken heart. Like, we have enough broken hearts in this year's Eurovision, I feel like. So maybe they didn't need to do that. But it is what it is. Should we move on to semifinal 2? Let's do so. I've already talked way more than I planned on doing, so apologies for that. I don't know. Let's actually try to get through these. And I want to start by talking about my own country, Denmark, because we're doing something different this year. And I didn't expect us to do something different. I expected us to do just like we've always done. You know, bringing what we've seen in Dansk Melodi Grand Prix out there, you know, to the masses. Doing it exactly the same. And we aren't ones who really do a lot with staging every single year. We aren't the country that hits it big, does something different with staging. But this year we really have an artist who have a style. And I'm so happy that we actually get to see this style, this visual identity that he have, because it is so different. And it is so different than what we've sent before. I know that the Eurovision fandom isn't 100% on board with Riley, but I am really proud of our entry this year. I'm really happy that Denmark is sending something that I feel like I can get 100% behind. We're sending an artist who has a style, who isn't just a newcomer who feels lost on a big stage. He gets on that stage, he feels comfortable on it. It seems like, you know, from the rehearsal clips that he can own it, even though he is just on his own. And I think that's very important. I hope this sends a message to DR to focus on, you know, really treat the established acts well, because they can do something different on stage, and letting them and their team have some more creative freedom on what they want to do on the Eurovision stage, because usually we don't see that. It feels like we're seeing that this year, that his team has really gotten the chance to do something that they wanted to do. And it's a matter of time if we see, is it gonna do well? Is it not going to do well? But I do still think we can get to the final. And I do still think that a top 15 is possible. That's one of my bold claims. You can put that on an Age Like Milk if you want to. But I think it's very much possible, because I think this song is very current. And it's very much going to appeal to that, like, more casual crowd. The crowd that doesn't follow Eurovision religiously, but still has fun with it. It's gonna appeal to the younger crowd for sure. It can maybe appeal to the rest of the world vote. It's difficult to say, but I do think we can get through to the final with this song. Another one that I do think can get through, even though a lot of people haven't really been talking about that, that's actually Armenia. What we've seen with their performance is really good. I really like this. This is another one of those songs that has grown more on me as time has gone on. I don't mind the rap bit. I think it's fun. And I like that Armenia is going out there, doing something different than what they've done before, because it could be so easy for them to try to do a Rosalind 2.0 and do something that felt very TikTok-y. This doesn't really feel TikTok-y at all. Yes, it has those, like, what is it, like Tumblr and Wattpad quotes, Pinterest quotes, whatever it is. That's a little cheesy. Yes, I am fully aware of that. But when that's all said and done, I think the performance looked good. When did Armenia become a country that really invests in staging? I don't know, but it seems like they are now, and I'm interested to see how this is gonna do, because I do think it can actually do quite well when we get to Eurovision. It'll be interesting to see at least where this can place, because again, it is about being able to capture people's attention now that we have televoting only. And this will capture people's attention, I think, especially in a semifinal 2, where things are a lot more open than they are in semifinal 1. You know, it's a lot more difficult. We don't know what songs are gonna qualify this year, and who knows, Armenia may be one of those that will shock people and will actually go through. I think it has the potential, especially with that, you know, LED wall or floor or whatever you want to call it, the LED mountain, whatever you want to call it, that she's laying on. I think it looks nice. I like that it's more projections actually than it is LED, because the colors are being projected on her as well. Very artsy, which fits very well with her style. I love it. I really do love it. But I think one that I want to talk about that I maybe not love as much, but I think we shouldn't be as worried as a lot of people are. That's, of course, Who the Hell is Edgar from Austria. This is my number one this year. I don't think I've mentioned that in any videos, but this is my favorite of the acts this year. And I get why people are saying that this is a little bit underwhelming maybe, but I think Austria is also a country that's never really been perfect at stagings. They set a piano on fire once, and they tried to do a Halo last year. But besides that, they haven't really been a country where you've looked at their stagings and thought, wow. I mean, except of course for Conchita Wurst, they did it with her, but they haven't done that many fantastic stagings, I feel like. But whatever. I think, you know, maybe they're being smart. Maybe they are keeping a lot of stuff to themselves. Maybe the 30 seconds that we have seen just aren't the full thing, and there's going to be a lot more fun on it. I think this is a song that depends way more on the two singers and how they interact with each other, because it's a very interactive song or whatever. I think no matter what, the crowd's gonna go wild and they're gonna sing the po 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 bit, and I think it is still going to be a moment. I don't think this is gonna be a winner. In fact, I never thought that this had a chance of actually winning Eurovision. But can it go to the final? I do think it can. And it just depends on how well it'll do. I still think it can get some televotes in there because that so many people have loved it right from when it came out, myself included. But it was never about winning, I feel like, this song. This is more like with Moldova last year, where it's a song that's not really about winning, but it's about doing a moment, getting the crowd involved, getting everyone involved, and I think this song can do so. Honorable mentions from semifinal 2. I just want to give a shout out to Iceland and her jumping all over the stage. I know that people aren't a huge fan of this. They weren't a huge fan of it in Songkeppnin either. I think it's interesting. I think it's a lot more artsy than people give it credit for, and this is also one of my favorite songs. It's in my top 5, and I think this is severely underrated, so I would love to actually see Iceland come through. Slovenia having that rock band moment, definitely the band this year that I feel like uses the stage the best. You know, having the whole band out there on the satellite stage, you know, being close to the crowd, I do think that's the right way of doing it. People are already saying Måneskin just because, you know, they have the lights a little down. I feel like they're one of the few who are actually using the LED light rig like that, but that's really interesting. I don't think people should compare them that much because I think they are doing their own thing. I like that they are doing something that feels more like, you know, concert vibes than trying to do a big Eurovision performance. I appreciate that. Lithuania, I want to mention just because I love the colors. We often see the same sort of colors again and again. So having this mix of purple and orange, that's very interesting. You know, it's a fun little combination. I almost want to... Can I get some orange on here? There you go. Orange and purple. There we go. I just wanted to do that. It's a different color combo than we're used to, and I think that's fun. In Australia, honorable mention because they have a car on stage. I just wanted to mention the car. Now, finally, I do want to talk about some of the performances from the Big Five as well. And this was actually a little difficult. You know, you would think picking 3, because I've picked 3 with the others. I know I picked 4 for semifinal 1, but that was just because I wanted to talk about both Finland and Sweden. But I guess you can say I mainly picked Sweden there. But, you know, it is a little difficult. You would think that it's not a little difficult. That's what I want to say. You would think that it's not difficult picking 3 out of 6. But it really is, because the Big Five have really stepped up this year. You know, they really saw Sam Ryder and Chanel last year and thought, maybe we should all put in that extra effort. So I kind of want to say, while I may not love all of the songs from the Big Five, I love all the performances. They feel very polished. They feel like, you know, they have their own style. And they know what they want to do up on that stage, and I very much appreciate that. I do, however, want to give a shout out to Italy. I do also want to give a shout out to France. That's the first one. I thought it was Italy that I put first. It wasn't. It was France. I love, you know, that they're teasing us like this, by the way, that, you know, the 30 seconds that they chose was just the beginning of the performance, so we don't know what to expect. But, you know, we stay in a queen on the ladder, or whatever you want to say. It's something that we've seen before in Eurovision, you know, the whole thing with being up on a huge platform. But I think that this is staying true to that style that she also had in the music video. Going with that style, I think, makes sense because it feels so much her, it feels so much France, it feels so much elegant glamour, which is exactly the vibe that she gives off. So doing it like that, trying to do this very elegant performance with her up there, makes total sense. I don't have this down as a potential winner like I know some people have. Again, you shouldn't listen to my predictions, but I don't have that. But I still think it's going to be a moment. I still think it's going to do well. It's definitely going to do better than Friends did last year. No doubt about that. But the other one, like I said, I want to talk about, that's Italy. And I mainly want to talk about Italy because I feel like this is so severely underrated this year. You know, it's so typical. The year where I really get behind Italy, having it as one of my favorites. Of course, that's the year where everyone stops being an Italy stan. Whatever. I think this is a beautiful ballad. One of the best ballads this year for sure. I think we haven't seen much of the staging yet. There are definitely some dancers in there, and it'll be interesting to see what they're doing with that. But I think, you know, keeping it simple, I think is the best way. This is a song where you have to listen to the vocals. You have to feel the song. It has to be intimate. I feel like having, you know, 2 dancers and a singer up front, it has a little bit of the same vibe as Ireland did in, I think it was 2018, right? With the song Together. I believe it was 2018. I should have looked that up before saying it, but I'm 99% sure it was 2018. And yeah, that worked really well. And I think it is going to work well here as well. So I don't think Italy's gonna flop. I know a lot of people think that Italy's gonna flop this year, but I don't think they will. The juries are gonna love it because it's a great vocal performance. The people who love a beautiful ballad, I do think a lot of people will be loving this as well. Maybe there are just people who don't want to admit it. Maybe people don't want to admit that this song is actually a very beautiful ballad. I don't know. Or maybe I'm just too basic. I do admit that I can have some basic tastes sometimes, and maybe this is another example of that. But finally, let's just quickly talk about the United Kingdom. And I know it's a little difficult to talk about the United Kingdom because we don't actually have a clip from it. Apparently there was some issues with the mic feed in the second rehearsal, which means that they didn't have a clip to put off. I guess they tried to fix it because the rehearsal roundup didn't come up until like midnight or something. So I guess they really did try their best to fix it. They weren't able to, which is a shame because I really wanted to see this in full, the full 30 seconds. But just looking at this photo, like, I was one of the people who didn't get the hype on Sam Ryder's staging last year. I didn't think it was as amazing as everyone tried to make it out to be. But this, I think, is fun. I love the pop of color. I love the pop art style that we are seeing in some of the pictures. Can I find a picture where we can see that here from? There we go. The pop art style, I think it fits perfectly to her and her aesthetic. You know, we've seen some of the outfits that she's worn in some of the pre-parties. It definitely shows that she's part of this very youthful pop of color aesthetic, which I'd like to say that I'm also very much a part of. If you notice some of the clothes that I'm wearing and, you know, the purple and blue and pink colors that I'm using on this channel, you can definitely tell that this is right up my alley. This is a fun bop that needs a fun staging, and especially having that home crowd there where everyone will most likely be singing along, really cheering her on. I think this will be a moment, and having this song closing the final as well, I think is absolutely perfect. I think there is something special. We had in 2001 in Denmark as well. There really is something special about having the host country, you know, being the last performance, because you build up to this moment where the whole arena is just full of energy. Everyone is so excited to sing along to their home soil entry, and this will be a huge moment. Will it be another top 10 for the United Kingdom? I don't know, but I would love to see it because this has Fun Bop written all over it. I don't have any honorable mentions here for the Big Five because they are all honorable mentions. You know, I think Germany really doing that heavy metal style, that's great. Seeing Germany actually, you know, doing rock, a genre that's very popular in Germany, makes total sense. I'm so happy that they're actually doing it. I don't like the song. I don't like heavy rock music. But good for those who enjoy it. It's always nice to have different genres in Eurovision. And speaking of different genres, while the R&B vibe of Ukraine's entry may not be my favorite as well, I do think that, like I've said with some other entries, they've taken their national final style and bumped it up. You know, having those like bright blue and yellow colors. Absolutely beautiful. Love to see it. I think this is also going to be a moment on stage. I don't think we're gonna see another Ukrainian victory. I just don't think the song this year is strong enough, where I feel like Stefania was just such an anthem last year that it made a lot of sense, you know, to have a big anthem combined with, you know, the situation still being so new there. It made total sense why they would go on and win. This year, it's very different. People are, you know, honoring Ukraine, and it is going to be a show full of Ukraine, which probably also means by the time they actually get to the voting, people feel like, you know, they've had their dose of Ukraine. Now they want something else next year. And I think that's fair. I think Eurovision 2021 and 2022 will always go down as, you know, one of the years where the history of Europe and the history of Eurovision really ties together. And with that being said, Ukraine just always deserve. They always do something great. They deserve to be in the final every year, and they are in the final every year. And I don't think this is going to be a bottom tier song. I don't think it's going to, you know, do as badly as some people might think. I still think this could do a top 15 in the final. I definitely think so. But that is it. Those are my thoughts on the songs. What are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comments below. This was a little bit of a different thing that I wanted to try out today, so I hope you enjoyed. I think I'll be back on Wednesday probably, talking about semifinal 1, some of the things I loved, some of the things I maybe didn't love about that show, and we will of course be looking forward to a week full of fun and Eurovision. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe down below for more Neon Pavilion Eurovision content. And I'll hopefully see you guys very soon. Take care.